Good evening, everyone, and thank you for your continued engagement with the MCIC conference. Tonight's session is entitled, Is Love Learned? We have some community standards during the Midwest Culturally Inclusive Conference. Kaden is going to link a full description of those in the chat, but I am going to verbalize a few of them now as well. Please obtain consent before taking any photos, screenshots, copying text, or generally sharing content that is not your own. If you're here for a class or just personal or professional interest, note-taking or writing reports is completely fine. Just please ask before taking any content that is not your own. To reduce background noise, please mute your microphone when you are not speaking. When you are speaking, please turn your camera on and identify yourself. Speak clearly and slowly so that our live closed captioning service is as accurate as possible. We will be using closed captioning for all sessions during the Midwest Culturally Inclusive Conference. If you do not currently see live captions on your screen, you'll want to click the CC button, or it's possibly under the More button on your Zoom taskbar, and click View Live Transcript. If you're having any difficulties with this, please message us in the Zoom chat. The QR code that you see on your screen directly links to our Campus Climate YouTube page. We currently have a couple of postings of some recorded sessions. So you can go ahead and use your smartphone if you'd like at this time to bring that up so you're familiar with where recordings are located. Most of the sessions during the Midwest Culturally Inclusive Conference will be recorded, and this is being done to make them as accessible as possible for those who cannot attend live sessions. We've also been posting some updates in Whova and posting recordings there when they become available. If you have any questions during tonight's session, please use the Zoom chat, either publicly or privately. We have a couple of co-hosts tonight and their names are listed here. We will also be monitoring our Campus Climate email account during tonight's session and throughout the entire conference. And lastly, I would like to introduce tonight's session entitled, Is Love Learned? This session is being hosted by Melissa Stoner and Trisha Maharaj. Sex, relationships, abortion, body parts, boundaries, sexuality, the list goes on and on. The truth is, love and everything that goes with it is a skill we need to work on. It's also a subject people feel they can't talk about. This presentation empowers learners to discuss these topics and to encourage self-efficacy in learning more. I will now turn things over to Melissa and Trisha.
Thanks, Emily. Kaden, are you ready to share the PowerPoint?
You know what, I was, and then I started clicking things, so one second.
Isn't that how it always goes?
I know, I was so ready, and then here I am messing it up. Okay. All right, how does that look on everyone else's end? We good?
Beautiful. All right, you can go right ahead to that next slide. So like Emily said, I am Melissa Stoner, and I'm the university's prevention and education coordinator. So I work at the Dean of Students office. And today I decided to bring one of my friends along, Trisha. Trisha, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Trisha Maharaj. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm here today because I have a master's in human rights studies with a focus on women's rights, particularly reproductive and gender justice, and have worked in the reproductive rights movement for the last few years in a federal legislative, like grassroots organizing capacity.
So like Emily said, we're here to talk to you a little bit about what we like to call love education. And really the biggest thing that we hope you get out of this presentation is that there is always more to learn and that there are tons of resources available to every single one of us. So we are actually going to launch a quick poll. All right. The poll is launched. We have 3 quick little questions.
And we also understand that polling might not be available depending on the device you're using. If you want to share any of your answers privately, you can always private message one of us as well.
All right, is there anyone else who would still like to utilize the poll? Are we good to? All right, closing the poll. Maybe I spoke too soon. Oh, I guess Kaden, if I'm going to share the results, does it have to be on my screen?
I don't think so. Well, that's bizarre. What if I move it over here? Can you all see the results if I move it?
You can see them.
I see nothing. All right, well, I'm just going to read off to you what it's saying. Someone said that they can see it, but in general, the majority of people said that their sexual education was pretty basic. I'm actually super excited to see that nobody said it was scary or abstinence only. I grew up on an abstinence only education, didn't really learn a lot until I got to college. Primary source for sexual knowledge, the great majority of us did say school. No big surprises there. Nobody said sibling. I can appreciate that. And do you feel like you can talk to your partners about sex and all sex-related things? Overwhelmingly, a lot of people did say yes, which is awesome. That means we're moving in the right direction already. But a few of us feel like we might be a little uncomfortable, or maybe we're uncertain about certain subjects, and that's cool. Kaden, if you could press enter, some language I'd like to see on the screen. So I really like the way Afrosexology puts this. At the end of the day, we're talking about sexual health and sexual education. And this is about you, and this is about personal decision making. We are not here to tell you what to do. We're here to give you information. And with that information, you can make decisions about your sexual health, about your personal relationships. We're here to help. We're also here to recognize that for many of us, talking about sex and everything that goes with it can be somewhat uncomfortable. And that can be for a number of reasons. Maybe it has to do with our culture, how we were raised, our households, our schools. But at the end of the day, we want everyone to feel really comfortable talking about these subjects because it's super important for your overall holistic health. Next slide. So like I said before, we're talking about love or sex education. The World Health Organization does describe sexual health as a state of physical, emotional, mental, and social well-being. So it's not simply just anatomy, or hey, this is how reproduction works. It's a lot of different things. If you go to the next slide, Kaden. The National Sex Education Standards actually includes all of these different subjects in order for someone to say that they have had a comprehensive sexual health education experience. And it's a lot. I know for me personally, I didn't get a lot of this stuff growing up. Trisha, what about you? You're shaking your head, yes.
I'm muted, but did anyone talk to me about pleasure when I was learning about sex? No. That was something I solidly learned in my 20s. And so, yeah, I think, there is so much that really encompasses sexual health that we don't talk about or we don't think about as sexual health, that, like pleasure, that is an integral part of like your sex life and your health.
Yeah. So that's what we also want to bring to everyone's attention today, because I know for a lot of us in the poll, we said we kind of got that basic information. And we'll definitely want to learn more about like what you think the basic education even was. Because I'm guessing for a lot of us, it was different. Next slide.
Great. And so I kind of want to start this conversation by grounding it in this idea of justice. And so reproductive justice was started and led by Black women and other women of color, really, to fill the gaps in understanding how our intersecting identities, particularly race, and especially when those are like groups that have historically been pushed to the margins of our society, how that impacts and layers on to impact our health outcomes. So reproductive justice is the human right to maintain personal bodily autonomy, have children, not have children, and parent the children we have in safe and sustainable communities. And so that feels really obvious, but in practice, we often see out in the world how individuals from these marginalized communities, and especially like Black, Indigenous, people of color, are impacted differently than others in their reproductive and sexual health outcomes. We see like youth of color have disproportionate risk of like negative health outcomes, including teen pregnancy rates. Black and Hispanic women are more than double the rate of white women when it comes to HIV rates and STI rates. They are disproportionately high amongst like people of color. Black women are 3 times more likely than white women to die in childbirth. Hispanic women are 2 times more likely than white women to die in childbirth. So I think when we talk about reproductive health, sexual health, we also want to be thinking about access. So, can you, it's really about access and not necessarily just choice. So you need to have both. Can you afford care? Can you travel for care? Are there systemic barriers that make it more difficult for some to have access than others? Is your immigration status stopping you from seeking care because you don't have insurance? Things like that. So I wanted us to be thinking kind of in that lens as well as we go through the rest of the presentation.
So Trisha and I were talking about this presentation, and as you saw from that word bubble, there's a lot to cover. I mean, that was enough education for all of K through 12. That was the core content. And obviously, we are not going to be covering that all in the next 40 minutes. The truth is, each one of these subjects just on the screen could probably be an entire course, let alone just a lesson. But we decided to focus on these 4 areas because we felt like they were really important for college students to start thinking about. So in just a few moments, we are going to break you guys up into breakout rooms, 4 different rooms, and we want you to start thinking about each one of these subjects. So our friends in group 1 will be talking about reproductive health. And it's important to remember that sexual health and reproductive health are different. Not all of us have sex for the purpose of reproduction. People in group 2 are going to be talking about healthy relationships. Group 3 will be gender and sexuality, and group 4 will be STD education. So I'll also put the questions we want you to talk about in your groups in the chat, but I just want to review them really quick. So within your groups, we hope that you talk to everyone about what you know about the particular subject, where and how you learned about the subject. What do you feel was missing from your own education? So like, what do you feel like you're still unclear on? Like, what do I not know? And then we also want you to create a list of all the things that college students should know about this topic. So let me put that stuff in the chat, right? Oh, look at that, Kaden. You're doing it for me. Thank you. What a helpful guy.
I do my best.
All right. So group one, you guys are going to be talking about everything related to reproductive health. Group two, healthy relationships. Group three, gender and sexuality. And group four, STD education.
Okay, all 4 are in the chat.
You are amazing, sir.
Got you.
You guys talked about. Oh, recording in progress. So would a representative from group one, reproductive health, like to tell us what your discussion was about? Uh-oh. Anybody from group one?
Hello, I'm Emily.
Hey, Emily.
So one thing that we kind of talked about is that we do lack education in reproductive health, especially because in earlier health classes, you're taught a lot of like abstinence and whatnot. So reproductive health is not something that they really teach you about. They focus more on the don't have sex type thing rather than even reproductive health in general. So yeah, that's a lot of what we talked about, is how we don't actually know as much as we thought maybe we should know.
Thank you, Emily. Yeah, Trisha, I see you nodding along.
Yeah, I mean, I think like that sounds similar to what I learned growing up. You learned how not to get pregnant. You didn't learn what to do if you got pregnant, whether or not that was happy news or sad news. Like they never discussed what the options were, because the whole goal was just don't get pregnant.
Yeah. I think similar for me, it was very black and white. It was like, do this, don't do this. If this happens, bad things happen. Yeah. Anyone else from the reproductive health group or any of the other groups? Did we all learn about reproductive health in the classroom, or do people feel like maybe their parents did a better job?
I mean, one thing I'll say is that's like, I'm now like 30 years old and I work in reproductive health. I thought that I knew all the things, and I still am constantly finding out things about pregnancy and birth that I had no idea, because there just is not a lot of education out there for people to really be empowered and learn these things. So a lot of women, like I found out most of this on TikTok, to be honest. Like I see a lot of TikToks about this and I'm like, where was any of this information growing up? Like most people don't know this information when they're choosing to grow or not grow their families.
Yeah. Emily, I saw you unmuted for a moment.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, like, as an adult, I learn a lot from podcasts, but my mom did do a good job of talking with me outside of school. She actually sat down myself and my best friend when we were 12 and kind of went over everything that she knew to, an age appropriate standard. And then I don't know if any other folks got this growing up, but there was like this, I don't know, American Girl doll-esque like puberty book
The care
that
and
she
keeping
also
of you.
gave me.
Yes.
Yes. So yeah, I thought that she did the best job that she could, and it wasn't a subject that wasn't talked about. And so when I did need help or maybe access to birth control and things like that, that was an open door. So
Yeah. So I'm getting from the chat and from this discussion that our educators were American Girl and PBS. I'm okay with that.
I think I was gonna say that I feel like my mom did a good job with it too, but one of the things that's interesting having teenagers right now, like a 17 and a 19-year-old, is a lot of them, like I think there was and still is a lot of pressure to be sexually active. Like somehow you're not fulfilled if you're not. Like society gives you all this, you know, you all have to be doing this all the time. And if you're not like horny all the time, then there's something wrong with you. And I think that the current teenagers are, some of them, not all of them, obviously, but like are actually like okay with if that's not a big part of their life. You know, which is really kind of cool too. Like instead of feeling that constant pressure to like be doing this thing, they're okay if they're not doing it too, which is really, I think, something of a gift.
And I really appreciate you saying that, Molly, because I think you're right. When it comes to sexuality and sex education, we have a lot of people who ask themselves the question of, am I normal? You know, and the truth is there's a whole lot of normal. There's a whole lot of things that fit under that normal that we don't necessarily recognize.
And it changes all the time, like throughout the lifespan or throughout, you know, a year, like that might change, or throughout the day, like what feels like, you know, normal.
Normal.
So bringing in an international perspective, I grew up in Hungary in the 1980s. And so what I found very interesting coming to the United States is that how much education on these areas were moralized as opposed to look at in a very biological way. So when I grew up, it was more like, that's your biology. This is a normal, this is just what it is, as opposed to layering that with all sorts of moral issues. And so the second thing that I want to mention is that when you showed, Melissa, in the beginning, that reproductive issues are very complex. It's not just your biology, but it also includes emotional aspects. And I do wonder how much we are emphasizing that aspect of that with children. Is it just biology, or is it also the consequences of how we live through different experiences through our souls as opposed to just through our bodies?
Yeah, thank you, Adina. And like, what is the decision-making process and what does that look like for you? You know? So group 2, healthy relationships. Was there anything that you discussed that you felt was like, hey, no, this is missing for us?
Sorry, that's us. I'm supposed to be talking for you, but I can't remember exactly what, I mean, we did talk through these pretty well. But you're catching me at close to my bedtime as an old lady here. So I think we did talk about that, normalizing it. I think we actually talked about conflict quite a bit, like different like ways that people like they weren't okay with conflict, or you know, they didn't know how to deal with it, that kind of thing. We also expanded on the whole idea that there's a lot of healthy relationships that are outside of a sexual relationship, you know. So I know we're talking about sexuality right now, but like, you know, healthy relationships exist, you know, with or without sex involved in them too. So you can kind of, and another thing about how they really change, like there isn't like one idea of how a relationship is. Like an equal partnership, well, one day that might look very different than another day for even the same two partners. You know, if you're having a bad day, someone else might pick up the workload. So there's a lot of, myths about that. So those were kind of our main points.
Yeah, thanks, Molly. So I want to be conscientious of time. So Kaden, if you could share screen again. It sounds like a lot of people were having good discussions about, maybe what we're missing or what we should be talking about more. And Trisha and I sat down and we kind of talked about, okay, what are the basics? What's the information that we feel like every college student, like if you know this, it's a great place to start off, and then you can learn from there. And that's what we have next for you, a little summary of these topics.
Yeah, so we're going to breeze through some reproductive health. Why is reproductive health important? Let's start. It's a key component of your overall health. Your reproductive system, part of your body, take care of that and you're taking care of your actual overall health. 46% of pregnancies in Wisconsin right now are described by the person who's pregnant as unplanned. I mean, if the more that we know about our bodies, the more we can bring that number down. And that knowledge about your reproductive health and rights leads to empowerment and autonomy. If you understand how your reproductive system works and how, what options are available to you, you're going to be able to decide when you want to have kids, decide when you don't want to have kids, and make choices that empower you and help you to lead the life that you would like to be living and that you choose to be living. And so we can go to the next slide. And so where can you start if you want to be taking care of your reproductive health? Take any concerns and questions to a medical professional and schedule regular checkups with your OB/GYN. The American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists recommends starting to see a gynecologist between the ages of 13 and 15. They also recommend you do your first pelvic exam and pap smear by the age of 21. A pap smear you usually need one every 2 to 3 years. A pelvic exam is usually an annual thing. And that's kind of where you can go learn about your options for birth control, get prescriptions if that's something that you're interested in, and really address any concerns or questions that you have. Would be establishing a really good relationship with your gynecologist so that you can always feel comfortable talking about your reproductive health with them. And we can go to the next slide. And so one thing I did kind of want to go over a little bit more is abortion. I think that 1 in 4 women in the United States will have an abortion by the age of 45. And I find that most people don't actually know what an abortion is, what it entails. And so I just kind of wanted to quickly let you know that if that's an option or something that you find yourself considering at some point, this is kind of what you're considering. So there are 2 different types of abortions. There are surgical abortions, which use suction basically to remove the pregnancy and pregnancy materials from your uterus. That can be done up until 14 to 16 weeks of pregnancy. And then after that, a more surgical dilation and evacuation is needed, which just also involves a couple other medical tools. That procedure takes 5 to 10 minutes. I think you'd have to go into a clinic. It would take longer because you would be there in a recovery room for a while, but it's generally a 1-day procedure. You would come home afterwards. And then there are also medical abortions, which are also known sometimes as self-managed abortions because you go home and really manage what's happening to your body by yourself. And that uses medication. And so you would take mifepristone and then misoprostol. The first one stops the growth of a pregnancy, and then misoprostol starts uterus contractions to basically flush your uterus out of the pregnancy. And so it's very similar to a really heavy period or almost a miscarriage. And that medical abortions at this point account for more than half of all abortions in the United States. It is, I think, one that people often choose because they can go home and be comfortable and do those things themselves. And in 2021, so last year in the middle of the pandemic, the FDA permanently allowed abortion pills to be given out by mail. So it is becoming one of the more accessible ways to have an abortion. And then just kind of I wanted to talk a little bit about the mental health part of this. Someone mentioned kind of your emotions, your mental health afterwards. I think that there's a lot of time there's this idea that women who have abortions afterwards are traumatized. And that is certainly the case for some women. But when we talk about polling data and what most women who've had abortions say, most of them feel relief after. They feel like they've made the right choice. And so that's always a big part of it, is thinking when you make choices, how they're going to affect you emotionally. But I will say that that is something that most women say that after they have an abortion that they wanted to have, they felt relief. They did not feel regret over it. And so we can go to the next slide. And so then if this is something that you're deciding that you would like to do, I really just wanted to talk about access and how you can access this type of healthcare. access to reproductive health care, and particularly abortion, varies wildly depending on where you live and what the laws are in that state. So I wanted to cover some like Wisconsin specific information around accessing that type of care. So in Wisconsin, patients must receive in-person state-directed counseling before a procedure. So that means that you would have to go to a clinic or a health center at least twice. And you would also have to endure a 24-hour waiting period before the actual procedure. There would have to be an ultrasound before the procedure in which the doctor would have to show you and describe what they're seeing on that ultrasound. And state health insurance plans will only cover abortion in specific limited circumstances where a pregnancy is, where it's threatening to the life of the pregnant person or is the result of like rape or incest. And there are also, from what I've seen in Wisconsin, significantly more crisis pregnancy centers than in the state than actual care abortion providers. And what a crisis pregnancy center does is kind of, it masquerades as a place that will actually give you care and then tries to push on you their own moral beliefs. And so whatever choices you want to make, I just want to make sure that you're getting the care that you would like to be making. And so ways to look out for crisis pregnancy centers is they won't actually tell you if and when they will schedule an abortion. They use words like hope and choice, but don't give you options besides continuing a pregnancy or adoption. And they really they use language about, are you pregnant? Are you scared? Do you need help? So those are just kind of ways to look out for that so that you can, when looking for your actual reproductive healthcare options, find what you're looking for. We can go to the next slide. And so then just some online resources. Planned Parenthood, regardless of your politics, they have a really great encyclopedia about reproductive health and your different options and different practices and procedures. Bedsider.org, amaze.org, both have really great resources about sexual and reproductive health. I listed a couple of TikTok creators that are like OBGYNs in their day jobs that do these really great videos that kind of just break down different myths about reproductive health and kind of just explain and do things really in a really easy to understand way. And then if you're looking for some more reproductive justice oriented resources, I listed a few. Most of them are for like based in like Indigenous, Black, and Latinx communities. And we can move to the next slide.
Hey, Trisha, sorry, I just had a quick question.
Yes.
So the resource that you listed here, am I right in thinking that you can access care that doesn't have to go through your insurance through these places, right? So like if you're still on your parents' insurance, you're able to get care without that showing up on like an insurance bill or statement.
Yeah, so if you go to a Planned Parenthood or you go to almost any like reproductive health, like abortion provider, they're going to have a sliding scale of payment so that you don't have to run it through your insurance and they will work with you to have a payment. And so I would not be, that's a really great point. If you have insurance, if you don't have insurance, if you don't want to have it show up on your parents' insurance, you can still call, you can find out, they will have ways to work with you that does not have to run through your insurance and can still be affordable.
Thank you, Trisha.
So let's talk about the why healthy relationships are important to understand when you're a college student. In truth, the National Domestic Violence Hotline has done a lot of research on this subject, and they found that 52% of college women report knowing a friend who's experienced some form of intimate partner violence. And on top of that, over half of all college students said that it was difficult to identify dating abuse. To be honest, personally for me, I don't remember learning about healthy relationships in my sexual health education courses for K through 12. I think a lot of healthy relationships or just relationship education is based off of our observations, what we see in the media, what we see with our friends and family. You can go to the next slide. The truth is, every single relationship, and what Molly said, platonic or romantic, each one exists on a spectrum with healthy, unhealthy, and even abusive behaviors. So we've provided this resource known as the relationship spectrum to help you to start thinking about what behaviors are maybe not okay in some of my relationships. Are they unhealthy and maybe we can possibly change that, or is it unhealthy and it might be leading to a much more dangerous place. You can go to the next slide, Kaden. Ultimately, and if you press the next button as well, the biggest resource I want to talk to you about when it comes to learning about healthy relationships on your own is Love is Respect. Love is Respect is an amazing project that was actually developed by the National Domestic Violence Hotline, specifically for young adults. So this is information tailored for high schoolers and college students. And any question that you have on healthy relationships, they've got an answer. You can even take quizzes. Like if you're feeling like maybe some of the behavior of your partner is maybe a little unhealthy, you can take a quiz on that. If you're worried about a friend, you can take a quiz on how do I help someone in an abusive relationship. Love is Respect is an amazing resource, and it really guides you through anything you want to learn. Next slide. In addition to Love is Respect, there's also the One Love Foundation, the National Domestic Violence Hotline website, and also Scarlet Teen. So again, feel free to take a picture of this page. Learn more on your own. You might have a lot of questions and you might have a lot of concerns. Explore these websites, take some time with them. Next slide. Oh, it went so fast. So why is it important to learn about gender and sexuality? Well, because gender and sexuality, kind of what Trisha had said about reproductive health, is an extremely important part of our life. Understanding gender and sexuality can help us to understand who we are. And it also shapes a lot of the decisions that are made on, the global and state level field. So next slide. One of the biggest things we wanted to point out tonight was the fact that gender and sexual orientation are different things. A lot of times they end up kind of getting looped in together into one conversation, and that can be really confusing for a lot of people. However, the Trans Student Educational Resource Center can provide you with tons of different definitions and explanations of why gender identity and sexual orientation are in fact different. So you go to the next slide. One of the best resources that we would recommend exploring on their website is the Gender Unicorn. So again, it gives you a definition of all of these different terms, and then it also helps you to explore what works for you. I know personally for me, I didn't learn a lot about gender or sexuality until I came to college. Next slide. We have tons of resources on this campus that can help you when exploring your own gender and sexuality. But there are also national resources available as well. So you can check out the Doyle Center or the Southwest Wisconsin Rainbow Alliance for more local resources. And then you can check out the Trevor Project or the Human Rights Campaign for a larger scale. So STD education is so important for college students because the college student age group accounts for almost half of all new sexually transmitted infections within 1 year. So college students, you are the largest group that's impacted by STIs. This is important to talk about. Kaden, next slide. So I'm not going to show you this video because we are really short on time, but essentially one of the most important things I can tell you about your STD education is talk, test, treat. It's really important that you're not just talking to your partners about your status, and that conversation should include, hey, when were you last tested? Do you want to get tested together? What have you been tested for? It should also be talking to your healthcare provider. So never assume that you're getting an STD test. Never assume that you're getting tested for a specific thing. Ask your doctor. Tell them specifically, hey, I think I need to get tested for chlamydia or HIV. Testing is super easy and it's generally free at Student Health Services. Thank you. Actually, it's free all the time, but Student Health Services is planning a walk-in STD clinic April 5th from 4 to 6 p.m., which means you don't need to have a full provider visit. You're just in and out. If you are tested positive for chlamydia or gonorrhea, which are the most common STDs on our campus, treatment is simply antibiotics. It's quick and it's easy. It's really important to know that if you do test positive for an STD, you do want to talk to your partner about them also getting tested and potentially receiving treatment. A common problem that happens for people who have chlamydia is they don't tell their partner, or their partner and them have sex before they fully are treated for chlamydia. And so then they reinfect each other. You don't want that to happen. Next slide. We also want to stress that barrier methods are available on our campus for free. And barrier methods are accessible to every type of person, no matter how you have sex. For many of us, our sex education was very limited and generally not LGBTQ friendly. So many of us didn't learn about internal condoms or dental dams or finger cups. All of this stuff is free and available on our campus. Next slide. And I went a little crazy with the resources. I apologize. If you are transgender and you don't know if your health provider is safe and inclusive to go to, Wisconsin does have the Wisconsin Transgender Health Directory. So you can find someone who is going to respect who you are. Also, the Wisconsin Department of Health Services HIV program can also help you locate PrEP if you are someone who is at a higher risk of contracting HIV. We'll just skip that slide. So we had to speak through, I apologize for going over, but Trisha and I really do want to encourage everyone to continue learning on your own. It's honestly one of the most empowering things you can do is to learn more about yourself and to learn about how you can take better care of yourself. So for that reason, you can either scan this QR code or we'll provide the link later on. But we've created a little virtual scavenger hunt for everyone. We're going to ask you to explore different resources and different articles to find the answers about how you can have a better love life. Anyone who actually completes the scavenger hunt will actually receive a Love Better You Betcha free t-shirt. So Trisha, was there anything else you wanted to leave the group with?
Just that I want a shirt too. But I mean, really, kind of to echo what Melissa said, you can always keep learning. And I think, sex is more fun and much more empowering the more you know and the more you understand your body and what's going on with it. So yeah, that's, make it more fun, make it more empowered, learn some stuff.
I love that. That's perfect. Also, Kaden, if you go to the next slide, again, this is being recorded, so you can always review this on your own time. We've listed some other resources that are available, and we've listed them under different categories. So if you want to learn more about pleasure and what role that plays in sex, if you want to learn more about anatomy, your ability to access health, you can explore all of these resources. And then next, we also have listed sexual violence resources. Yes, the campus has a lot of resources, but we've listed some resources that are available for BIPOC folks as well. Cool. So thank you all so much. Sorry we had to speed through a little bit, but thank you all for coming.
Thank you.